I assume everyone can hear me. My name is Darlene Birch Clark. I would like to thank you for attending the Plan Well, Retire Well workshop. Kalamazoo Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta has partnered with Mr. Stan Ellis of State Farm Insurance to present this workshop. I hope everyone will enjoy the presentation. I would like for us to view the agenda for a few seconds for how the workshop is going to flow. Next, we'll have Sylvia introduce Stan Ellis. Stan will speak, provide his presentation. Then we will have a question and answer session for 15 minutes. I think we had discussed that participants can send their questions through the chat box. So we'll try to provide as many as we can during the question and answer session. We will do the polling evaluation, and then we'll have the closing remarks. The WebEx is being recorded, and we can, I guess, send that out to people who would like to have the recording. So now I will turn it over to Sylvia.
Motivator. He has a strong presence, high energy, and is known for his passionate and powerful delivery. Stan helps people who are seeking to advance their life to think in new ways they've never considered, so they will gain the edge that will propel them to the next level in life. He's been studying and communicating creative strategies and solutions for the past 30+ years. He spends most of his days in his State Farm Insurance and Financial Services office, helping people protect their assets and make smart decisions about their money. That's how he puts to use his chartered advisory for senior living destination Series 6 and Series 63 security licenses and property and casualty and life and health insurance licenses. Stan has been speaking to audiences for the past 20 years in churches, schools, and seminars. He shares his life with his wife, Evelyn, for the past 32 years. They have 3 beautiful young adult daughters and 1 grandson. I'd like to present to everyone Stan Ellis.
Hey, thank you, Sylvia, for that very fine introduction. And I want to say right up front, thank you to the Kalamazoo Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority for your partnership and having me today. I also want to take this opportunity to thank each of you for joining us, and thank you for this investment in your future. Hey, let's dive right in. Let's start right up front with talking about how much money you need to retire. We hear a lot of talk about retirement, but we hear very little talk about how much money you're going to actually need to sustain you in retirement. But I want to help you with that because I have a very simple formula that you can use to determine the amount of money that you're going to need to amass, that you're going to need to have to sustain you in retirement. The first thing you need to do is determine your annual income needed in retirement. So you add up, if you have a home with a mortgage, you add up your mortgage payment, or if you're renting, you add up your rent, you add up your insurance costs, your groceries, your utility bills, you add up all your expenses, and most people determine their expenses in terms of a monthly expense. You take that monthly expense, you multiply it by 12, that tells you how much you're going to need per year to maintain the lifestyle that you want to have in retirement. You take that and you divide it by 4% in decimal form, which would be 0.04, and it will give you the figure you need to have amassed in order to retire. Let's give you an example. Let's say you added up your annual expenses and it came to $40,000. So in our example, the amount of money you're going to need each year to maintain the lifestyle that you want to have in retirement is $40,000. You take $40,000, you divide it by 4% in decimal form, and it gives you a figure of $1 million. That's right. If you want to have an annual income in retirement of $40,000 a year, you're going to need $1 million in order to retire and have that type of lifestyle. That $1 million should be able to sustain you for 20, 25, or more years. Okay, so there you have it. Now you can plug in any annual figure you need to this formula. Let's say you have a lifestyle that is $100,000 a year. You would take $100,000, you would divide it by 4% in decimal form, and it would give you a figure of $4 million. You would need $4 million a year to retire and have a lifestyle of $100,000 per year over the next 25 years. So there you have it. Hey, let's move on. Let's go to Roman numeral 2, and the question is, can you become a millionaire through investing? Can you become a millionaire through investing? I think you would be surprised to know how many millionaires are living in middle-income neighborhoods throughout the United States. Individuals who simply put away a certain amount of money for a certain number of years on a consistent basis and amassed $1 million. So let me give you some examples. A, if you have 30 years until retirement, you're going to need $481 per month at 10% to get to $1 million. Basically, that's a car payment, to put it in perspective. If you have enough time and you have $481 a month and you're getting an average rate of return of 10%, it'll get you to $1 million in 30 years. It's much simpler than most people think. Now, it'll take $1,021 a month if you're only getting a 6% rate of return over a 30-year period to get to $1 million. So the rate of return is very important as well. Okay, let's go down to B. If you have 20 years until retirement, it's going to take the more than double the amount of money you needed for 30 years to amass $1 million. So it'll take $1,382 per month at 10% to get you to $1 million if you have 20 years until retirement. $1,382 per month. Now, if you're only getting a 6% rate of return, you will need to invest $2,195 per month at 6% to get you to $1 million. Let's move on. If you only have 10 years until retirement, it's going to take almost $5,000 a month at 10% to get you to $1 million. It will take $4,964 a month invested at 10% to get you to $1 million in 10 years. So as you can see, time is the most important factor in amassing money. Time, and then consistency would be the next thing. And then, of course, the rate of return is very important too. Okay, let's move on. There are only two things you can do with your money. We want to boil this down to the simplest form possible. There are only two things you can do with your money. You can spend it or you can invest it. You can either spend it or you can invest it. Well, you might say, no, there's other things I can do with my money. I can give it. Yep, that would fit in the category of investing it, because giving is an investment. When you give, you tap into a law that God put in the earth called sowing and reaping. I don't believe you can really ever give anything away, because I believe what you give, although it leaves your hand, it never leaves your life. It goes in your future, and it's there waiting for you in the form of a harvest. So there's only two things you can do with your money. You can either spend it or you can invest it. Now, let's look on Roman numeral number 4. There are only two types of investments. And that is loan investments and own investments. So what I want to do here is take the complicated and make it very simple for you. You hear terms like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, tax-free municipalities. You hear all these terms, but basically there's really only two types of investments. And if you can grasp this concept, it will catapult you ahead of about 90% of the population as it relates to understanding investments. Let's take a look at what a loan investment is. So a loan investment, with a loan investment, you loan an institution money in exchange for a moderate rate of interest. You loan an institution money in exchange for a moderate rate of interest. I want to give you some examples of loan investments, the first of which is a CD. You've heard the term CD. I want to explain what a CD is. CD stands for Certificate of Deposit. A CD is basically a glorified savings account. With a CD, you park a certain amount of money with the bank with an agreed upon time frame. So you have to leave it with them for either 6 months or 12 months or 24 months or 36 months in exchange for them giving you the money back at the end of that time frame plus a small amount of interest. It's a loan investment because you're actually loaning the bank that money. What is the bank going to do with that money? They're going to use that money to loan someone else money to buy a car or to have a mortgage, and they're going to charge that person a much higher rate of interest than they're paying you. So they're using your money to make money, thus you're loaning them money. That's why it's called a loan investment. Another type of loan investment is a bond. A bond. You hear the term stocks and bonds, but very few people explain what they are. You're going to be able to understand what a bond is. A bond is simply a loan investment. You loan a corporation money in exchange for them giving it back to you plus a rate of interest. So here's what a bond really is. Let's say Chrysler has come up with the idea for a brand new car, and they know that this car is going to be a really nice car, and it's going to sell to a lot of people across the world. But they don't want to put their money into the tooling, the equipment, the engineering, the testing. So what they will do is offer bonds to the public. Let's say they offer $100 bonds. You'll have hundreds of thousands of people taking that $100 bond, and that's the way they raise money to purchase the equipment, the tooling, to pay for the engineering and the testing for that car. And when that car is finally made and manufactured and put on the market and makes a profit, then they use that profit to pay back everyone who lent them that $100. And they pay them back the $100 plus a rate of interest. With a bond, it's very similar to a CD. There's a certain amount of time that you agree to leave the money with the corporation or with the government. Let's say the government is saying we want to repair all the old bridges across the United States. And so the government will offer a bond. It may be a $50 bond. You can buy as many of them as you want. Basically, you're loaning them $50 at a time in exchange for them using that money to do whatever it is they need to do, and they're going to pay you that $50 back plus a rate of interest. That's what a bond is. It's just a loan investment. You're loaning a governmental institution or a corporation money in exchange for them giving you your money back plus interest at an agreed upon time period. And then you have what are known as fixed annuities. A fixed annuity is a type of loan investment. The word annuity means series of payments. An annuity is a retirement plan where you park money, you invest money with an insurance company or a bank or another type of investment company, and that money is held with that institution until retirement age, at which point they're going to give you your money back in a series of payments. It's usually monthly payments for as long as you're alive. You put the money with them, you get that money gains interest, and they're using that money for other purposes. While they're using that money, they're investing that money, and then when it's time for you to retire, you get your money back in a series of payments. It's a loan investment. And then you have savings accounts. We know what a savings account is. You put money in the bank. With a savings account, you don't have to leave it in the bank for a specified amount of time. But you put the money in a savings account in exchange for them giving you a very small rate of interest. But why do banks want you to put money in their banks? Because they're going to use that money to make money off of. They're going to loan somebody $24,000 to buy a 2020 Nissan Altima, but they're going to charge them 6 or 7% interest on it, and they're going to pay you 0.25% interest on that money that you left in the savings account. And then there's some checking accounts that actually pay you interest. Those are all loan investments. Loan investments pay about 0 to 5% interest in general. The good thing about a loan investment is the institution that you're loaning money to will establish what the interest rate is that they're going to pay you. And it's a guaranteed rate of interest. So with loan investments, you have a very low risk of losing money because it's a contract where they're saying, hey, you're loaning us money, we're going to pay you this rate of interest, and this is when we're going to give you your money back plus the interest. So that's what a loan investment is. Okay? Now, let's talk about own investments. Own investments. So with an own investment, you get a share of equity or ownership. You get a share of equity or ownership in exchange for your investment. Okay? Now let me give you some types of own investments. The first of which would be a mutual fund. Again, we hear this terminology. People throw these terms around, but very, very few people can articulate what it is. Let me simplify what a mutual fund really is. So what's the next holiday coming up? We got the 4th of July coming up. So let's say that a group of us are at my house. We're having a barbecue. We got some ribs on the grill. We might have some hamburgers, some hot dogs. We might put some steaks on the grill. You got to have your side dishes. We got some baked beans. We might have some macaroni and cheese, potato salad. You know, we got the staple items. It's the 4th of July. We're sitting around, and then somebody comes up with the idea, you know what, we should be investing. Who amongst us knows how to invest? Who knows how to pick investments? And nobody raises their hand. So someone comes up with the idea, why don't we hire a professional investment manager? And why don't each of us put into this fund $100 a month each? Give it to the investment manager, let him or her pick the investments, and as the investments increase, we will split the profits, so to speak. That's what a mutual fund is. You have a pre-established professional investment manager who picks all the investments in that one fund, and there's hundreds of people who put their $100 a month into that fund. Some put $500 a month, varying amounts, in exchange for when that fund experiences an increase, everyone who put money into that fund will experience a share of the profits from that fund. The beautiful thing about a mutual fund is you get 2 or 3 things. You get, number one, a professional investment manager, okay? So instead of you trying to figure out should you buy stock in Coca-Cola and Microsoft, the professional investment manager who does this, nothing but this for a living, is the one who's picking the investments. So you get professional management, you get diversification, because with a mutual fund, that investment manager is purchasing shares of ownership in about 500 different companies, all in the same fund. So if you were on your own and you purchased stock in 2 different companies and both of those companies went belly up, you've lost all your money. Whereas if you put money in a mutual fund and 2 or 3 companies in that fund went belly up, you still have 497 other companies to sustain your portfolio. So that's called diversification. You get professional management, you get diversification with a mutual fund. A mutual fund is a own type of investment. And then individual stocks are own types of investment. When you purchase a share in Microsoft, you are a part owner of Microsoft. Did you realize that? So let's say a share of ownership of Microsoft is $179. You purchase one share of ownership of Microsoft, that they give you one stock of ownership in Microsoft. So that's why we say a stock is an own investment. You're getting equity. You're getting ownership. That's the difference between a stock and a bond. With a stock, you gain ownership in that company. With a bond, you have ownership. You're loaning them money in exchange for them giving it back to you in the future. And then, of course, real estate is an own investment. If you're purchasing your home, that is an investment. If your home is worth $200,000 and you owe $150,000 on the mortgage, you have $50,000 of equity or ownership in that property. That's an own investment. If you purchase a rental property, a duplex, you have 2 units, and you own that property. That's ownership. That's equity. And of course, if you own a business, that is a type of own investment. If you're the sole owner, you have 100% equity or ownership in that business. So own investments pay about 10 to 12% interest if you average it out over a 70-year history. So that's the difference between a loan investment and an own investment. If you can keep those two things straight, again, you will have catapulted yourself above 90% of the population. It is important to balance between the two. In your portfolio, you should have some own investments and some loan investments. The loan investments are guaranteed, and they help to add security to your portfolio. But in the long term, you can't beat ownership in terms of reward. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to what is the proper order of investing. There is a proper order. Number one, first and foremost, emergency fund. You must have an emergency fund, and I'm going to say make it a goal to get it up to 3 months of your expenses. Okay? Why would I say that's the most important order in investing? It's important because an emergency fund is called an emergency fund because you will have emergencies that require funds. And if you have started an investment program and an emergency comes up, and you don't have an emergency fund, you're going to use the money that you were investing, and it's going to interrupt that flow, that time factor that we talked about earlier that is so important in investing and amassing money. So you need an emergency fund. Let's say right now you do not have an emergency fund set up. You should shoot for $500 in your emergency fund. And if you get creative, you can find ways to come up with $500 by just thinking of things that you can cut back and be a little more frugal on for a period of time. Once you get up to 500, then shoot to double it to 1,000. I would say once you have 1,000, go ahead and start investing, but then continue to add to your emergency fund until you get up to 3 months of your expenses, because people have run into what they've run into during the current situation that we're dealing with, where they did not have a cushion at all. Their hours got cut back. Some people got laid off, and they had nothing to fall back on, and it's causing quite turmoil. And of course, that's not a criticism. It's just a reality. So the proper order of investing is, number one, emergency fund. Number two, 401k or other profit-sharing plan where there's an employer match of your contribution, because that's free money. A 401k is simply an employer-provided retirement plan where an employer is going to match contributions that you put into the fund. This is extremely important. If this is offered to you and there's an employer match after you have your emergency fund, you definitely want to be involved in this. Because if you put $100 in and your employer is going to match you dollar for dollar, for every $100 you put in, they put $100 in. And usually they do that to a certain limit. I'm an employer, and I offer my employees a dollar for dollar match up to 3% of their income that they invest in my 401k plan. Okay? So if you put $1 in and I put $1 in, that's 100% return on your investment. We talked about own investments averaging 10 to 12% over a 70-year period. With this investment, you're getting 100% return. You're doubling your money every time you put $1 in there, up to a certain limit. So that's why that's the next thing that you should be doing in terms of the order of investing. And if you still have money left to invest after you put money in a 401k plan, then the third order would be a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA. Again, if you still have some more money to invest after you've maxed out contributing to your employer-provided 401k, you definitely want to do a Roth IRA, and I'm going to explain why, and I will explain what a Roth and an IRA mean. So that's the order of investing. Emergency fund first, 401k plan second, and then a Roth IRA third. And when changing jobs, make sure you always roll over your plan, your 401k plan, to an individual retirement account. There's a couple of reasons for that. We won't spend too much time on that, but just wanted to hit on that. Okay, let's talk about what a Roth IRA is. Let's talk about what a Roth IRA is. First of all, IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. Okay? It's an individual retirement account. That's what IRA stands for. Roth is the name given to an individual retirement account that the government established, I don't know, about 15 years ago, I think it was. And they established this type of IRA to encourage people saving towards retirement. The government saw the handwriting on the wall that Social Security is not nearly as secure as it used to be. You may not be able to rely on it going deep into the future. So the government said we got to encourage the public to begin to invest in their retirement. So they offered this new type of individual retirement account called an Roth IRA. And it's an IRA with some excellent tax advantages. Did you realize your number one financial expense is, if you have a mortgage, is not your home. It's taxes. It's income taxes. You pay more in income taxes than any other expense in your life. You experience it if you have withholding. You make $1,000, and then your check is what? $792? Taxes, okay? So here's some of the advantages of a Roth IRA. First, you get tax-deferred accumulations. Tax-deferred accumulations. In other words, when you put money into your IRA to accumulate it over time, at the end of each year, you do not have to pay taxes on what you've gained on that account. Okay? Because typically with investments, as the investments increase, you have to pay taxes on the increase. Yeah, the government charges you income taxes on your investment accounts increase. I have an opinion about that, but I'm not going to say it. Next, you get tax-free distributions. This amounts to no taxes. So when we say distributions, that means when you get to retirement age and you start distributing the money, you start taking the money out. The government says with a Roth IRA, for the first time in the history of this country, you do not have to pay taxes. So let me give you an example. You start putting money in your Roth IRA. You did it for 15 years. You invested $500,000 in your IRA. Now your IRA is worth $750,000. You gained $250,000 in interest on that $500,000. Typically, you would owe income taxes on that $250,000. That's $40,000 or $50,000 or more. But the government says with a Roth IRA, when you get to retirement age, you do not owe any taxes on all of those gains. That's why a Roth IRA is the next most important thing to invest in after you've maxed out your 401k. Okay? Who's eligible for a Roth IRA? Any employed worker. So to qualify to invest in an IRA, you have to have earned income. Okay? And you can contribute up to $6,000 per year into a Roth IRA in the year 2020. And if you're 50 and older, you can contribute an extra $1,000 per year for a total of $7,000 per year. Okay? You can open a Roth IRA if you make, I'm sorry, you cannot open a Roth IRA if you make too much money, because the government is saying, hey, you're in a good situation, you're making a lot of money. We're not going to allow you to put too much of that money in a Roth IRA and then we not get our taxes on it. Okay? So if you make more than $139,000 a year as a single person, they're not going to allow you to contribute to a Roth IRA. If you make more than $206,000 as a married couple filing jointly, you cannot contribute any money to a Roth IRA. Okay? Now, let's just kind of move on. You can withdraw from a Roth IRA. So if you put any money in that Roth IRA, we talked about earlier, I gave you the scenario of you investing $500,000 into a Roth IRA. You can withdraw from that Roth IRA without penalty if your Roth IRA has been held for 5 years and you've reached age 59 and a half, or if it's for a first-time home purchase, or if the withdrawal is made because you're disabled, or, of course, if the withdrawal goes to your beneficiary because you passed away. All right, so they have these rules. You get penalized if you take money out of this Roth IRA and you haven't met these requirements. But they do say you can withdraw any amount that you contributed to your Roth IRA at any time without penalty. That's what I meant to make note of when I said if you had invested $500,000 into your Roth IRA, you can withdraw any of that $500,000 without penalty. What they're talking about is, what the government is talking about is you withdrawing amounts beyond the $500,000. In other words, you withdrawing the interest gained on the account. You start to withdraw that money, and then you have to pay penalties. There's a 10% penalty that applies for withdrawals that don't meet these above standards. This might sound a little complicated, and I apologize. Just trying to keep it as simple as possible. And then, so that's a Roth IRA. There's also a traditional IRA. The traditional IRA was the only IRA that existed prior to the government coming up with the Roth IRA. A traditional IRA is similar in concept to a Roth IRA. The main difference is the tax treatment. The tax treatment. You still get tax-deferred accumulations, which means as you make contributions to a traditional IRA, at the end of each year, you do not have to report any gains on that IRA and pay taxes that year, so they defer those taxes until retirement time. But there's no tax-free distributions, okay? So at retirement time, you pay tax. That's the fill in of the blanks there. You pay tax on the gains at retirement time. Unlike with a Roth IRA where there's no taxes on all the gains. With a traditional IRA, when you reach retirement time and you start to take your money out, you have to pay taxes on all that money that you gained from that investment. Some traditional IRA contributions are actually tax deductible, okay? So if you're not an active participant in a qualified plan, a qualified employer plan like a 401k plan or a savings and thrift plan or other type of defined benefit plan, which is a type of employer-provided plan, your contributions to your traditional IRA are fully deductible on your taxes, regardless of your income. So the government says, hey, if you don't have an employer-sponsored plan and you're just putting money in a traditional IRA, you get to deduct all the money that you put in that IRA from your taxable income, which reduces your tax bill, okay? And if you and your spouse participate in an employer-sponsored retirement plan, your adjusted gross income level will determine how much of your contribution is tax deductible. The higher your income, the lower deduction you're going to be allowed. Okay? All right. I hope this is clear. Let's move on and let's talk about some ways to make money in retirement. I want to throw some ways to make money at you in retirement because we're living in an era unlike the past, where many and most people, when they reach retirement age, are probably going to still need a source of income because we weren't able to amass all of the money that we need to just go home and travel to Florida, travel out of the country, and do whatever we want to do. Okay? So I want to give you 7 or 8 different ways that you can make money in retirement. Number 1, rent your space. Rent your space. You can earn cash hosting people from around the world when you rent your extra space on Airbnb. Airbnb. Airbnb is an online marketplace for arranging or offering lodging, primarily homestays. You can rent a room. You can rent your entire home by the night, by the week, or by the month. You can cash in on that next event that your city hosts by logging on to www.airbnb and set up an account where you can host a room or host people with a room in your home or your entire home, rent out space in your entire home. So that's one idea. Okay, let's go to item B. Consider rent a grandma. Rent a grandma. Here's a way to share 2 of your best attributes, your love and your wisdom. You can upload a profile on Rent a Grandma. It's a website, and start accepting jobs from families for child care, elder care, tutoring, being a personal assistant, and more. You get to negotiate job responsibilities and payment directly with the families that hire you. You can even start a franchise in your area, anywhere in the world. And the website for Rent a Grandma is www.rentagrandma.com. Next would be get paid for online surveys. Get paid for online surveys. A couple of years ago, I was offered to do a survey on, they were wanting information from financial advisors, and they said it would be an hour-and-a-half survey. They would pay me $250. Sure. I could take my lunch break and do an hour-and-a-half survey, $250, and it ended up taking 45 minutes. So I made more than $250 an hour if you consider the rate just to answer their questions. So get paid for online surveys. Cash Crate is a great paid surveys site. So trying new free products and services, taking consumer research surveys, and referring others, you can get paid for that. You can also earn money back on your own online purchases and win prizes for socializing and playing games. So you can go to cashcrate.com to get more information on that. And of course, there's other online survey sites. You got to do a lot of research because some of them will take a lot of your time and pay you a small amount, but you can find some that will pay you a significant amount. Okay? And then next, try on-demand ride sharing. On-demand ride sharing. I was just in Brooklyn, New York, right before the pandemic hit. It had already hit there when I was there. The streets were pretty empty, and I spent the whole 3 or 4 days using rideshare, connecting on my phone with Lyft or Uber. When I got to the airport, I asked them, where is the rideshare area? I went there, and I took a look at a couple of different websites to see who was the least expensive. I ordered a ride, and they pulled up and took me to where I needed to go. Okay, so new websites that promote collaborative consumption are popping up all across the website. Lyft is one website that connects car owners with people who need a ride. So you're using your smartphone in your car. That's all you need. You can earn money by giving rides to people in your area. When a request for a ride comes in, you can choose to accept it or not. So you can go to Lyft.com, or you can also check out Uber. All right? And then next, become an event planner. Become an event planner. Of course, everybody loves a party. If you're the extrovert who always goes the extra mile for that dinner party or birthday celebration or Super Bowl get-together, then share the love through party planning. Find a niche that you're particularly good at that you love, and start letting people know that you're available. You can keep it casual for some extra money on the side, or you can scale it up to make it a larger business if you choose to. There's an article on this in Entrepreneur Magazine, and I give the link to that article there in the outline. And then next would be self-publish your own book. Self-publish your own book. Have you had an idea for a book burning in the back of your mind for years? Maybe now is the time to let it out. You never know. That book could go viral, so to speak. You could sell thousands of copies. You can go to 60andme.com, and there's an article there called 5 Compelling Reasons You Should Write a Book After the Age of 60. And it gives some good information on how to get started. And then next would be try life coaching. Try life coaching. You've accumulated a lifetime of experience and wisdom. Why not share it with other people? People are seeking coaches to help them in their work, with their relationships, and for their personal development. So decide where you shine and start coaching in that area. There's no rule saying you have to be certified to be a life coach. However, if that's something you want, there are an abundance of opportunities on the internet to help you with that. Next would be join a virtual call center. Join a virtual call center. If you have great phone skills and a passion for people, you can combine the two and bring in a little extra cash through a company called Live Ops. Live Ops. Sometimes you're calling a place, a company, and don't even realize that someone sitting in their kitchen is the one who took your call. A call center hired them and are paying them to actually represent that company. Once you become an agent with Live Ops, virtual call center, you're an independent contractor. Consequently, you can work as much as you want. You can make it a side hustle. You can take many hours, scale it up, and turn it into a dynamic business. The website there is liveops.com. And then last but not least, consider substitute teaching. Of course, we don't know where education is heading given our current situation. But I believe at some point things are going to return not all the way to normal, but probably close to the way we did things in the past. But in many schools, you don't need a license to be a substitute teacher. I've got several individuals that I know take substitute teaching assignments and make a pretty decent side income doing so. You know, everyone doesn't have the time, but again, if you're in retirement and you're looking for extra income, this could be an excellent way to keep you engaged, to be able to touch the next generation and earn some income. They pay you a pretty decent per day pay to be a substitute teacher. So those are just some thoughts on ways to earn money during retirement, because most people will run into the challenge of not being able to amass the amount of money that they need to sustain them for 20, 30 years in retirement. Let's shift gears a little bit. And I want to give you what we call the rule of 72. The rule of 72, what this is. So the rule of 72 shows you how long it would take for your money to double. How long it will take for your money to double. So the missing blank there, Sylvia, is double. The rule of 72 shows you how long it will take for your money to double based on the rate of interest you're receiving. So you figure out what your fixed compound annual interest rate is. Once you know what this is, you divide it into 72, hence the rule of 72. And then the answer is going to be the number of years it's going to take for your invested money to double in value. When doing the math, most people are used to writing out percentages in decimal form, such as we did on our first example when we started our presentation. So 4% typically is written as 0.04, but with the rule of 72, be sure to keep the rate as a whole number, or your answer is going to be woefully off the mark. I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about with the rule of 72. Okay, so you take 72 and you divide your interest rate into it, and it's going to equal how many years until your investment doubles. Okay? So let's say you're getting 14% rate of interest. You take 72 divided by 14%, and it's going to take 5 years basically for your investment to double with you doing nothing. You sitting there eating, sleeping, going to work, going on vacation. You're getting 14% interest rate. Your $10,000 is going to turn into $20,000 in 5 years. That $20,000 is going to turn into $40,000. Another 5 years, that money's just going to double every 5 years if you're getting 14% rate of interest. If you're getting 8% rate of interest, your money is going to double every 9 years. Take it a little longer to double. If you're earning 6% rate of interest, your money is going to double every 12 years. If you're earning 4% rate of interest, your money is going to double every 18 years. A number of years ago, I set up a simplified employer retirement plan. At the time, I just had 2 employees and myself, and I put some money in that plan. As my business began to expand and I had more associates, I changed the type of plan, and I just left that money in that original simplified employee plan. And I looked at the statements on an annual basis. I didn't pay much attention to them. And then one day, a number of years later, I looked at it, and that thing had quadrupled without me doing anything, just because of the rate of interest. That money was doubling every 7 or 8 years or so. It has doubled every 7 or 8 years. So that rule of 72 just gives you a feel for how long it's going to take for your money to double. It's just a rule in the industry to help you have a feel for how your money is going to increase, and particularly how it's going to double based upon the rate of interest that you're receiving. Let's talk about compound interest, because a lot of people underestimate the value of compound interest. You all have heard of Albert Einstein. He was a genius who defined what gravity was and how it works. It's said to be that there are 7 wonders of the world, but it is reported that Albert Einstein said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He said, "He who understands it earns it, takes advantage of it. He who doesn't pays it." In other words, you're losing out when you're not taking advantage of compound interest. Let me give you an example. Let's say you invest $100,000 and earn 10% interest. So at the end of year 1, you will have $110,000, right? Next year, you're going to be earning interest on $110,000 instead of $100,000 because of this concept called compound interest. After the second year, your 10% annual return will have earned you another $11,000, giving you a total of $121,000 because of compound interest. So you're earning interest on the interest. And then year 3, you will see your investment rise to $133,100. Growth accelerates. That's the magic of compound. Now, the key requirement for generating compound interest, again, is time. The longer you leave your money to grow, the more pronounced and positive the outcome is going to be. All right. Let's start to wrap this up. I have a couple of additional thoughts. The timing of an investment is far less important than the time that is allowed for it to deliver. By the time you hear that a particular investment is doing well and you should invest in it, it's too late to try to jump in. You're trying to time getting in when an investment is hot. It's all about time. As I illustrated in the beginning, if you have 30 years, $481 a month over a 30-year period at 10% gets you to $1 million. The most important factor is time, the length of time, as opposed to you trying to time when to do something. The time to do something is now, to give yourself the advantage of as much time as you possibly can, okay? And then essentially having a long-term long-term investment strategy, allowing growth to be achieved over time, provides the best possible opportunity to achieve financial security for you and your loved ones in later years. One of the most important pieces of any financial plan is life insurance. This seems like it's just coming out of left field. But one of the most important pieces of any financial plan is life insurance. In exchange for a small amount of money, the insurance company is going to bring your family a large amount of money if you pass away. Let me explain this. So let's say you're in your 30s and you start investing for retirement. You plan to invest and get up to $1 million. 2 years into your plan, you pass away unexpectedly. You weren't able to get anywhere close to $1 million. You have $60,000 or $70,000 saved. You couldn't reach your goal. If you had life insurance, that life insurance can bring your family that $750,000 that you had planned to amass, but you couldn't amass because you passed away unexpectedly. In exchange for you giving the insurance company a small amount of money, you have the agreement that they're going to bring your family a large amount of money if you pass away. Life insurance is underestimated and underused, and it's a very important foundational piece to any kind of financial plan. Life insurance is always a way to pass on large amount of money to the next generation. That's another thing that we don't think about often, is the next generation. There's a lot of wealth that's been passed on to the next generation through life insurance. Someone passes away, they thought about their loved ones, they thought about the next generation, made sure that they had life insurance in place to pass on to the next generation. We could keep going on all day long. Hopefully this has brought some clarity, brought some hope. Some of it's a little scary when we talk about amounts needed to sustain you in retirement. That's why we gave you some ideas on things you can do to earn money in retirement. I really, once again, want to thank each of you for your investment in this seminar today. I really appreciate you, and I want to thank, again, the Kalamazoo Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority for your trust, for having me, for inviting me. I want to say that I've written a couple of books that have absolutely nothing to do with finances, but I just wanted to mention them to you. The first book is called Transition, Mastering Life's Movements, and the book is all about where you're in a place or state where something has ended and you know you can't return to it, and the next thing hasn't started. The next thing has started, but you haven't yet arrived in it. You're somewhere between where you are and where you're going to be. You're not in your past, but you're not quite in your future, but you're no longer in your past, you're headed in your future, and how to navigate your way through that process. That's what the book is all about. I think it's very helpful for a time like now that we're living in. And then I wrote another book called Commanding Healing. Commanding Healing. It gives concepts. It's all spiritual concepts for healing, health, and wholeness, conversations with God, and commands to your body to promote physical healing in your body. My contact information is there on the screen. If you think I can help you in any way, insurance or anything that we discussed today, life insurance, or any question that you might have, or you think I might be able to help you, you don't have to be a client of mine for me to help you. I'm here to help people. I'm not here to just try to get something from you. I'd love to help you if you feel I can. Again, thank you. I'd love to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you so much, Stan. We have a few questions for you, and we'll start out with the first one. Is a pension plan considered a fixed annuity?
No. They're similar in design. A fixed annuity, when we say fixed, you're getting a fixed or guaranteed rate of interest on your investment into the annuity. And annuity simply means, that word means series of payments. That's what the word annuity means. So you have an accumulation period between now and the time that you're retiring and you're putting money into this annuity. And then when you retire, you get the payout. You get the series of payments back to you. All right. And then an employer-sponsored retirement plan, it's not considered an annuity. It's designed for an employer to partner with you to amass money, to accumulate money between now and the time that you retired. Their concept is the same, but they're a little different.
Thank you. Another question, is there a time limit in rolling over your plan to an IRA when you change jobs?
Yes, the government gives you a certain amount of time to roll it over without there being any penalties, okay? You can roll it over at any time, but if you wait too long, there can be penalties for you taking too long of a time to roll it over. I don't want to say what that time period is because I haven't committed it to memory, but I believe they give you 60 days or 90 days to roll it over without penalty to a plan. But again, it's not coming top of mind what that time frame is, so forgive me for that.
Another question, if you have a 401k from a previous employer, what is the advantage of moving it, especially if you're not losing money?
Number one, why did you leave the employer? Most people leave the employer. When you leave the employer, you're not on the same terms that you were with the employer. Do you really trust those people? Number two, because you're not employed there, you're probably not going to get the notices on that plan as quickly and as consistently as everyone else who works there. Those would be two reasons why right there.
Great. Another question, when you say max out 401k, do you mean up to the company match or do you mean up to the federal benchmark?
When I say max it out, I mean up to the company match. So if they say, we will match you 50 cents on every dollar you put in, up to 5% of your income, make sure you put up to 5% of your income and get that 50%, that 50 cents match. If they say we will match you dollar for dollar, up to 3% of your income, when I say max it out, I mean max out by putting up to 3% of your income to get that dollar for dollar match. That's what I mean when I say max it out.
Great, thank you. One participant would like you to go over the differences between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA again.
Sure. A Roth IRA, you get, as you're putting money in the Roth IRA, each year you don't have to pay taxes on that Roth IRA as it's gaining interest. Those taxes, that interest is not reported to the IRS, and you don't have to pay taxes on that interest while it's accumulating. And then when you get to retirement time and you take the money out, you pay no taxes at all on all of the interest gained on that Roth IRA. With a traditional IRA, when you get to retirement time and you take the money out, you have to pay income tax on all the interest that you gain. That's the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA, basically, is with a Roth IRA, you get tax freedom. You don't pay taxes on all the interest. With a traditional IRA, you have to pay income tax on all the interest that investment gained. That's the basic difference between the two, is the tax treatment.
Thank you. Next question. After retirement, at what age should we apply for Social Security benefits? Is it better to use retirement income and apply for Social Security at age 70 to get the full benefits?
It is best to wait as long as you possibly can. Some people think that's not true, but if you do the math, the longer you wait, the higher the payment, the higher the overall payout, the longer you wait.
Great. Can you explain the difference between term life versus whole life insurance?
Absolutely. Term life is like renting. Whole life is like owning. With term life insurance, you're renting the policy for a certain period of time, after which there's no more coverage. For example, you might have a 20-year term policy that starts today, and you're covered for 20 years. At the end of 20 years, the policy ends, and you can reapply for more coverage, but basically the coverage is over. With whole life, if you start today, you're covered for your whole life. That's the easiest way to remember what whole life is. you're covered for your entire life. So there's a guarantee that your family is going to receive money at some point when your life ends. Term is temporary in nature. Whole life covers you for your whole life.
All right, great. Thank you. So we don't have any more questions in the chat, but if there are more questions out there, please feel free to enter them, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question directly. All right, Stan, it looks like all of the questions have been answered. Thank you very much. So now,
Sure, thank you.
oh, wait, there's a question that just popped up. Which policy is better, term versus whole life?
Both. So I can't answer that. It depends on the individual. There are some advisors who say only buy term. They're saying that, but if you only buy term and then your period is over and you still need coverage, then you did yourself a disservice. Some say only buy term, never buy whole life, because at some point you're going to get to an age where all of your debts are paid off, your mortgage is paid off, and you're not going to need life insurance. I disagree with that, because you might want to pass money on to the next generation. And one of the best ways to do it is through life insurance. You're giving us a small amount of money in exchange for us giving your next generation a large amount of money. So I would say one is not better than the other. It depends on your situation. I have some of both. I have some term insurance, a very large term insurance policy, and I have some permanent insurance. So when that term insurance is over, I still have some permanent insurance left, because I want to make sure that no matter what age I pass away, if my wife is still here, I want to make sure she has a decent amount of money, and I also want to pass on money to the next generation. So I like both of them.
Great. We have another question. After maxing out the 401k up to the company match, at what tax bracket does it make sense to continue investing in the 401k before moving to the Roth IRA? And what if your company offers a Roth 401k?
I don't really know how to answer that question in terms of what tax bracket would best position you to continue to contribute. I'd probably have to, study that to be able to answer that question effectively. So I can't say I really can answer that in an effective manner. So I apologize for that.
Okay, and then the second part of the question is what to do if your company offers a Roth 401k.
I've never heard of a Roth 401k. I don't know if one exists.
All right. Any other questions?
Stan, they do exist in the some employer plans offer the Roth investment, which would be after tax contributions going there.
Oh, okay. So what I would do is, if an employer offers a Roth IRA, I would always compare it to, maybe an alternative plan, with an insurance company or an investment company. I would just do a comparison before I just jumped in and did the employer provided Roth or employer offered Roth. That's what I would do.
Great. And there's a few affirmations that some of the companies or participants offer the Roth 401k.
Okay.
Great. All right, so it looks like we've reached the end of our Q&A period. What we'd like to do is to open up our evaluation poll, and we're asking everyone to please respond because we'd love to hear your feedback on this session. So you should see a notification opening up on your screen shortly. All right, we have another 2 minutes before the poll closes.
Hey, hey, Carla. I
Yes.
got a message that some people are not able to see the poll.
Right now, we have 24 out of 31 who've completed it, 4 that are still in progress, and 3 that have not started. So I think depending on your computer, you may have hit a button that moved it from your top view.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, the poll is going to close in 10 seconds. Thank you all for providing your information, and I'm going to turn it back over to our committee chair, Darlene, for our closing.
Okay. I hope everyone enjoyed the Plan Well, Retire Well workshop and obtained some useful information that you can apply to build wealth for retirement. I would like to thank Mr. Stan Ellis for being our guest speaker today for the workshop. Stan, it has been a pleasure to work with you. I really enjoyed your presentation. I would like to thank everyone for attending the workshop. Please feel free to contact Stan for any services that he provides. And he also indicated that you can also contact him if you had any questions as well regarding retirement planning or any financial questions. We recorded this presentation and we will have to, I guess, figure out how we can get that to you by email. Are there any other questions that anyone has at this point? We will select 3 people. We will select 3 people who submitted their polling evaluations, and if you're selected, we will contact you by email to see how we can get a gift card to you. So thank you, everyone. If there are no other further questions, we're very glad on behalf of the chapter that you attended this webinar. So that concludes what we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, Stan.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
attending.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Pastor Stan.
You're very welcome. Thank you.